Go.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to do what it says in the explain portion. If we can all stand up. I swear this will make sense based on the questions I have. Okay. So I love to run. I'm a big runner. Who's a runner in here? We should do the temple run. So those of you that know how to run, this is probably basic, but you got it. You run in place, and you have to run in place for 30 seconds to a minute. And those of you that run skirts, just you can do short steps. But the key is chin to pocket, as my coach would always say, chin to pocket. Okay, when you're running. And if you have jeans, you can kind of get your knees up. You got to get your feet up, right? Okay. We'll take 30 seconds, and you got to run in place as fast as you possibly can. Ready? And go. That's your teacher. Sounds like a silly question, but the way we approach this, I think will reflect how the missionaries will approach this. So bear with me, okay? Maybe discuss amongst yourself what changes. Take just 20 seconds. What changes in how did your body change as a result of this activity? What are you noticing? Just share with the person next to 20 seconds. Okay, 20 seconds is up. Let's bring back. He's also excited. Okay, here's the question. I want to bring it back to what we just studied. What does this little analogy, it's a little different than what's in the manual, we'll talk about the question in there too, but what does this analogy teach us about exercising faith? Exercising faith. Alan.
Our group was talking about this in the Bible dictionary, has this, the true faith always moves as a possessor to some kind of physical and mental action. We just talked about how, like, if missionaries are feeling despair, probably a good way to try to ward that off, or distress, is to get up and do something, act in faith. Change what you're doing in your studies, change what you're doing in your lessons, do something, and that's what faith is. That's how we make changes in our lives.
I could think about going for a run, and my heart rate would not change. Or I could think of doing push-ups. I'd be like, yeah, push-ups would be good this morning, and if I don't do them, then nothing will happen. So, I'm going along with what Og was saying, like, it's physical and mental. Like, missionaries, or if we're thinking about exercising faith, I could say, oh, okay, yeah, I love Jesus Christ, but I'm not actually doing anything to show that I love Him. I'm not exercising faith. Change won't actually happen within me. Change has to be, it comes as we do.
Right, exactly.
As we exercise, we get more physically able. As we exercise faith, we'll be more spiritually able.
There's one too, but like I tried to make my heartbeat go faster, and I just focused on it.
Yeah.
Tried all day, it would never happen. But then if I ran, then that would happen. Sometimes if we're trying to change ourselves, we're focusing on it, we're not doing the one thing that can really do it.
I think one thing along with exercising faith, we had to trust you and exercise faith, but there was a purpose to this. And I think sometimes when we're going through trials or stress, we need to trust God and have faith that there's a purpose for what we're going through.
Right. Good. DJ.
I feel like I'm not in the best shape, but I can walk somewhere and my heart rate doesn't really change very much. So we can be doing missionary things, or we can be doing things with our faith, but not really exercising it, not really stretching it or helping it grow.
Yeah.
So it's able for missionaries to actually be doing things, but not for the exercising of the
May hopefully you'll get some comments at us too. What are we learning about the relationship between exercising faith and stress with this activity? Oh, sorry. Alan?
Maybe this isn't quite the point you're
I'm not looking for anything.
looking for. Okay. So I don't particularly enjoy running.
Huh.
So when you say, all right, we're going to run, I feel stressed. But I always feel better afterwards.
Sure.
Right? And it's like the hardest part of going to the gym is actually going there. So I feel like how it can help us manage stress. For me, sometimes the thing that stresses me out is the answer as well. If I just would put my faith forward and do the thing that's stressing me out, I would experience the blessings of doing it, and God would say, hey, I've been trying to do this for how long now?
I think whatever we exercise the most is what becomes strongest.
Yeah.
So if we exercise feeling stress, that's what we just feeling that.
I think also of the talk that I think it was listened to, in which everything that we do physically here on earth, like, typifies a spiritual law, like it's an example or a model of a spiritual law. And so, like, we talk about exercising, and like, I know why I can't run a marathon. Like, it's obvious, I don't run. Like, it's not a hard thing, but we think, like, why don't I have such faith? Or like, why don't I have enough faith for this miracle? Or that kind of thought. And it's like, well, have I not done the steps that require it? And it's really quite simple when you think of it in that sense.
There's one more comment, Doug.
Something I was thinking about, so you said running, and I was like, oh, I'm excited. That was a little different than it's like, yeah, this is great. I love running, I can do this. And I got into it, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, a little bit before you stopped, I was like, oh, this is kind of burning. Like, we need to slow down.
Sure.
And so I thought about, like, quitting or, like, slowing down or, like, relaxing a little bit. And I think sometimes, like, with missionaries, they get into the NTC and they're super excited. You know, they're like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. I love this. And they get into it, and it gets a little hard. And then sometimes you're just like, oh, I want to quit. Like, I want to back off. I don't think I can do this because it's a little bit hard. I don't think I can do any harder than this. And not that I want it to be difficult for them, but I think because the time wasn't up, I knew that I could continue going. So I was like, oh, it's only 30 seconds. Like, I can go another 5 seconds. And I could trust in you because I knew that time was something that you decided. So it's interesting. I could hold out a little bit longer, and once I did, I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. Like, I can do this. And so I just think, you know, sometimes it gets to that point, it's like, I don't know if I can do this or not. And once we learn, like, oh, okay, we can trust in the Savior, you do it just a little bit longer, you know, it gives them that extra drive to do it.
Step in the door. Yeah. We don't think we can go any further. And that's where the real faith goes. That's where we exercise faith. So, I would love for you and your companion to answer the question on your sheet. You as teachers, if you had to describe what is stress, and we'll get the second question too, because you answer that, you ask a similar question to the missionaries, what is stressful about the NTC? I'll ask that too, I want to know. Go ahead and with your companion discuss, write down the answer to what is stress. Oh, what's that, Eric?
Just a comment about this for a second. I actually made a big mistake one day.
Oh, what's it up? Yes, sir. One more comment.
Just kind of a warning so you don't make the same mistake. One of the missionaries had a heart condition, and I asked them all, the whole district, to go running, and it put him in a bad spot because his doctor told him not to go running, and he's like, no, you know, because he knew that he had this bad heart condition. So just read your missionary questionnaire before you do this activity.
And it might even be wise.
Yeah, so or make sure you ask if it's okay to run or if anybody doesn't feel comfortable, because I made that mistake, put him in a bad spot. And I just saw him just sitting alone in the hallway, like, what are you doing? And I didn't realize what was going on until I went back and he had to explain it to me, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just be careful with that, Mark.
Good comment, thank you, that's helpful. Okay, go ahead and write down, just take 20, 30 seconds, what is stress? Write it down.
What is stress?
Okay, just like you do with the missionaries. Just like you do with the missionaries, we're going to watch this video. And I get something new every time I watch this. So I'd invite you once again, just like we asked the missionaries, look for what you might add to this definition or change about your definition of what is stress according to this video.
The concept of stress, it's the automatic physical response to any demand that requires us to adjust to change. And stress comes from the demands, say, of adjusting to an environment. Stress can come from demands of how we think about things, the expectations that we have, circumstances, social expectations. Those are things that can create stress.
Stress just means that you're alive. If you're not experiencing stress, you're dead. All of us, 24 hours a day, are experiencing some level of stress.
The idea basically is sort of like a bank account. We have certain checks that are coming out of the bank account and certain deposits that are going in. And as long as the checks and the deposits balance each other out, we're in pretty good shape. But if we start writing more checks on the account, then we have funds available to fill those checks. We end up in a difficult situation, we end up in debt, we end up in trouble with the bank, and we end up in trouble in our lives when that's what's going on for us personally. So we have all kinds of demands as missionaries. Some of those demands we put on ourselves, and they're not necessarily part of what's helpful to be dealing with as a missionary. We may demand a level of perfection of ourselves or flawless performance, or we may think that we're supposed to speak the language perfectly, or we're supposed to have all the answers to people's questions. And those demands we put on ourselves. But there are a lot of demands we can't really change. There are rules that we're expected to live. There are things that we're supposed to be accomplishing. There are tasks that are before us. We have people we have to get along with. We have to do things that are out of our comfort zone. We're trying to learn material that's challenging for us. We're not going to really reduce those demands. We all are going to face demands in life, and that level of stress is a good thing, a healthy thing. That's how we learn and grow. But it's when we feel like we don't have the resources to meet those demands that stress becomes distress. And the distress that we experience becomes a negative thing in our lives instead of a positive one.
Okay, take another 20 seconds. Discuss with the person next to you anything you might add to or change about your list. Emerson. Okay. If you turn to the next page, we're just going to focus on the problem of stress for another 5 minutes. I'd like to take the last 15 minutes talking about solutions. Focus a little time on the problem, just identifying it, and then we'll get it out of the way, solve it. So, go ahead on the next page, you should see what is stressful about, I want you to apply it yourself. What is stressful about being a teacher at MTC? And I want this to be as open and honest as possible. And I'm open to feedback. So go ahead and just, with your companion, the person next to you, discuss what is stressful about working at MTC or being a college student. I mean, just where you're at right now, what is stressful about school and work? Shin. And although I don't want to spend the rest of our time venting, let's get a little bit of a dump truck time right now. I just want you to be open and honest with me. What is stressful about balancing work and school, working here at the NCC? What is stressful? Whoa. I'm sorry.
Not enough time to do homework and like really understand the material.
I left it at, yeah. So I heard the question. I know I focused on working at NCC, but I want us to just open up in general about school and work at the same time. Eric.
Yeah, so I fall, just sometimes I fall into this really vicious cycle where I'm stressed about having to go to the MTC to teach because I know I'm not done with my homework. But then it's the vicious cycle because when I get to the MTC, I'm stressed because I feel bad or guilty that I'm focusing on homework or thinking about it when I should be focusing on the missionaries.
Right.
You know, because it's a vicious cycle. You feel stressed going and then you feel stressed when you're here because you shouldn't be thinking about homework when you're here.
Ariane.
Just balancing everything in general, like school, work, friends. Oh,
Social life too. Austin, you got a comment.
Yeah, basically the same thing, just putting a priority, because I mean, school is our number one priority, that's why we're here, but at the same time, you want to get your work, everything, so it's finding that balance.
Will.
Are we allowed to be specific with just the MCC? Not really care about school? Okay.
Sure. Bring it up.
Like the most stressful thing is feeling that I'm effectively meeting the needs of the individual missionaries. Like if we have a missionary who like thinking about going home, or when they go home, like it's just terrible. Or you have one who's like really can't focus and is really doing bad with lessons. Like, oh, I gotta give them attention, but I gotta focus on other missionaries as well. And that's so stressful.
To rephrase it, can't meet all missionaries' needs. And sometimes when they're not met, you feel like it's your fault, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Holly, Alan, and probably end with Melissa. Yeah.
I really struggle going back and forth between like trying to be a very effective teacher and be like on time, doing everything in like the order, the hour that like needs to get done, but then like taking time to actually help me with those needs. I feel like it's really hard to balance of being on time and having a schedule and following like the order of what we need to teach, get that accomplished, but then like I guess curriculum versus like time and the needs.
So, I have,
Yeah.
so going along with Will's comment, it's hard because we have this feeling that, you know, we've been there, we've been around missionaries for years, we've seen it time and time again, we know it will help them, but it still doesn't make it through somehow, even when we're trying to help them to grow. So going along with Will, so that's something that stresses me out, and when I don't feel like I can communicate effectively. The other thing I feel like has been stressful about the MTC is never being 100% sure of where you're at as a teacher. Like, am I a good teacher? Am I an average teacher? Am I Ben's secret project?
No comments. Amen. I felt that too. I didn't know if I was fulfilling my purpose as a teacher. It's as simple as that. And that stressed me out. Melissa.
I think, and I'm not the only sinner here, but like just feeling that I've like prepared enough spiritually to like teach by the Spirit these like representatives of God. Like, because there are some days